Comic-Con at Home with Pixel Dan. I, of course, am your host, Pixel Dan, and today I'm going to be chatting with the folks from Megalopolis. Now, Megalopolis, as you may know, full disclosure, one of the sponsors of the Pixel Dan channel, but they run an online retail shop. However, they just recently announced here at Comic-Con that they are diving into the world of toys, making toys, and they announced all kinds of licenses. So to talk about these new licensed products, please welcome to the show, Ben Westover. How's it going, Ben?
Yeah, it's going good, man. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. I'm just trying to deal with this whole weird online Comic-Con thing that's going on.
It's super weird, right? Man, I really, really wish I'm in San Diego, chilling by the ocean and shopping the shops in the Gaslamp district and eating at my favorite restaurants and seeing all my buddies I only get to see twice a year. It's definitely weird doing it from home.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's something really lacking with the experience, right? Like, and I know not everybody gets to go to the show, but you know, it's been such a big part of my life for the last decade. And I like you said, I miss seeing all my friends that I get to only see like twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We all only get to see each other really at Comic-Con and Toy Fair. Like that's it, right? So it's yeah, that's a bummer. And I've ended up really missing the city of San Diego a lot more than I necessarily anticipated too, as we've actually been in the week when it happens. Just because they're so cool to everybody, you know, they treat all of us nerds that descend on their city, they treat us like $1 million, and the hospitality there is awesome, and it's a beautiful city, and I just I miss that part of it as much as I miss the con right now, being locked in my house, land between the mountains with no ocean by me. It's yeah.
I feel you, man. I feel you. Well, let's get away from the depressing part of not being in San Diego and talk about some fun stuff, because you guys really kind of just came out there swinging with these licenses that you guys announced for this new foray into toys. So before we get into all that, what made you guys want to start making your own toys?
It's been part of our sort of long-term roadmap from day one. I mean, I've worked in the industry for a long time, and I've done a little bit of everything there is to do. So, you know, I've worked on getting stuff made and things like that before, but not taking on my own licenses or doing any of my own IP, which is always something I wanted to do. And when my brother and I took the reins of Megalopolis a few years ago and kind of all of the stuff we wanted to accomplish, making our own stuff was at the top of the list. And we definitely have a very specific viewpoint that we're trying to get across with what we make, with the licenses we go after and the type of toys we do. And just like with a lot of the things we do with Megalopolis, we sort of looked at things that were missing within the industry that we wanted personally. And so the toys we're making are the stuff that we're seeing get looked over and we just wanted, you know. So we figured if there's other people that are dying for new Barnyard Commandos, or if we were, other people were too, you know. So we're just kind of going after those licenses that we wished had been updated and running with it.
You know, I love it, man. Like you said, the people who've been dying for Barnyard Commandos. That sounds funny, but that exists. That's definitely a thing that's out there.
Right.
You know, because that's the weirdo kind of stuff that I know that I love. You know, I'm the guy who's always been touting about these weird toy lines from the 80s and 90s, like Food Fighters and you know, Madballs and Barnyard Commandos and all that stuff. And here you guys are making some of these things a reality again as collectible toys.
Yeah, I mean, the way I feel about it is this. We had, growing up in the golden age of toys, we had these sort of generationally defining properties that stuck with everybody, and everybody had them, like Masters of the Universe and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers. And there's sort of this desire of everybody that makes toys to want to go after that same handful of licenses. But when I look back over my childhood and into my adult collecting and stuff, while I love those toy lines, obviously you can see behind me, I got Masters of the Universe coming out my ears in my office here. But there's other toy lines that meant just as much to me. So like Barnyard Commandos, I have just as many special memories around them as I did Ninja Turtles, and they mean just as much to me. And I think there's these niche fandoms that oftentimes get overlooked. And just because maybe like Barnyard wasn't as big of a hit as Turtles didn't mean it didn't have a fan base, and doesn't mean just as much to the fans of that property, if not more. And so we're doing that not only with older toy licenses, but also stuff that, like, why didn't this ever get made? I mean, as we started down making our list of properties, like Battletoads was one of the first ones. It's like, how in the world has there never been a Battletoads toy line? Why has this not ever happened? So there's a bunch of stuff like that on our list too, where it's not just revamping, but it's also going after stuff that never got done that should be done and deserves toys.
That's incredible, man. And I'm totally with you with the Battletoads thing. So we're kind of throwing a couple licenses out there for anybody that doesn't know or hasn't kept up with this. What are all of the licenses that you guys have announced so far that you are producing toys for?
So far announced would be Madballs action figures, Barnyard Commandos, Battletoads, Earthworm Jim, Clay Fighter, and then we have the full collection of rare titles. So we also have Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark, and Banjo-Kazooie. I think that's all of them that we've made public.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So yeah, the rare stuff was what encompasses all of like the Battletoads and the Earthworm Jim and all that stuff's kind of part of that together.
So Earthworm Jim and Clay Fighter are with Interplay. So we have a contract with Interplay, and then we've got licensing with Rare as well. So there's two different licenses.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Some seriously fun stuff that definitely deserves toys. And I think we should go ahead and just jump into these Madballs, because I can see them sitting on the shelf. They're right there next to you. These are like the actual.
They are.
These are your prototypes, like your painted prototypes?
Yeah, these are the first three Paint Masters. So Wave 1 has Oculus Orbis, which is our eyeball guy here, Hornhead, Splitting Headache, and then the one I don't have here is Bruise Brother, and his Paint Master will be to me here in a couple days, and we'll be revealing him on August 1st when the pre-order goes live on the site. So that'll be the first chance to see Bruise Brother.
That's amazing. So first thing I got to say is those are huge.
Right.
I don't
they
think
are
I
enormous.
expect them to be so big. Yeah, I think you said they're what, 6 or 7 inches tall?
Yeah, they're a little over 6 inches tall, and they're super beefy. So they're not just tall. I'm gonna grab a Masters of the Universe figure and show you we'll do my version of comparison time here.
Ha, nice.
So let's see if we can get this where you can actually see it. So there's Oculus next to a Masters of the Universe Classics Merman. You can see they're like about the same height, but he's like 3 times as beefy as Merman is there. Very substantial figure.
That is incredible, man. Holy cow. And I really love. Oh, sorry. You get a tennis ball.
No, you're
right?
fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, I saw you grabbing
show
that
the tennis ball. Sorry.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of a lag in the. So yeah, I was just gonna show for the size of the head. You can see they're bigger than a tennis ball. So I mean, just to give a little bit of perspective of just how big the heads are there.
That's incredible. That's incredible. When the images first came out too, I was really kind of blown away with like the paint deco on these. I mean, these are like fully plussed out as far as the paint applications go. So
Right.
Do you think those are going to translate well into the final product? I know that sometimes the hand painted ones don't necessarily translate to the final product the same way.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big part of my perspective in toy making. I kind of feel a lot of times great sculpts get lost in subpar paint and subpar raw materials. Like a lot of times you buy like a mass market figure and it has that almost like translucent, waxy looking plastic, which drives me nuts. I think it's junk and cheaping out on paint apps. So the whole idea of Premium DNA as a name was to put a stamp on what all of our toys have as a common thread, starting with working with the top industry talent for the sculpts, all the way through to the best paint and paint masters where we are here, factories that use the best raw plastics and sourcing the best raw materials and can duplicate very high level paint. Same thing with the packaging. So every single piece of what makes the collectible is going to be top of the line and premium. And the way we've gone about doing the paint, working with JW Productions, who are just like amazing prototypers. It's all about doing a paint process that can be replicated by the factory and still be super high end. So they have lots of washes, lots of dry brushing, lots of highlights, and all those things that bring it to life. But they're done using Pantone colors that can be matched exactly and techniques that can be overlaid exactly in factory processes. So when these come out of production, they're going to be awfully close to what the paint masters are.
That is awesome to hear. That's awesome to hear. And you kind of talked about the talent that you guys are working with on this. Have you guys announced or said who's like the sculpting, who you guys working with to sculpt these?
Yeah, so we're working with quite a few different people. I mean, I kind of know everybody just from working in the industry forever. So Aaron Doyle is sort of like our head sculptor and also like art director for more or less for the sculpts. And Aaron, he'd probably be best known for the stuff he does for Four Horsemen. He sculpts tons of the Super 7 stuff, Turtles, Masters of the Universe. He's done tons of the Mattel stuff through the Horsemen. Then we also had Big Shot Toy Works worked on the Madballs. They did 2 of the first wave Madballs. James Groman, who's a legend, he hasn't done any of the sculpt, but he's given some art direction, and he designed the accessories and also the artwork turns for Splitting Headache. This is actually the first action figure that Splitting Headache has ever had. Which that's one thing we can talk about with Madballs too, is the original Head Poppers line. They did 9 figures, but there was 16 original Madballs in the core line. So we're doing all 16 of those Madballs as figures, not just the 9 that were originally done. And then there was also 4 figures that were designed specifically for Head Poppers but never got produced, and we're also doing those. So Splitting Headache is the first never released figure in the wave, and then each subsequent wave has 1 figure that was prototyped but not produced, and 1 figure that was never even designed from the ball into a figure, along with 2 classic ones. So it'll really flesh out the Madballs world. And James was really the main designer on that original line. So having him on board, giving some art direction has been really great for getting all the just right on the small details. His eye for nuance is incredible.
That's awesome. It is so cool to hear that James Groman is that involved with the process on these new ones, because that's legendary, man. Right?
Oh, man,
that's amazing.
It's like a dream come true. I mean, Barnyard Commandos was actually his first property right out of art school as a young guy. So it's like his baby. And so I get to work with him on Barnyard Commandos, and he's been drawing the artwork for that. We're doing a web comic that he's drawing so that we can introduce some of the characters that never got introduced into the original line. And so it's a really cool kind of full circle moment, right? Because here's James Groman, who this was his first thing right out of art school. And I was a kid who that line spoke to. And now all these years later, he's, a legend in the business. And one of these kids that loved his toys loved it enough to be bringing it back. And I get to work with him on it at the same time. It's like, I don't know, it's just one of those really cool kind of rewarding, happy accidents that happen sometimes working in toys.
That is awesome, man. That is so cool. So you did talk about how these are essentially inspired by the Head Poppers, but these aren't going to have those terrible springs that like launch the balls off randomly on our toy shelves, right? These are like nice action figures. Right. Can you talk about the articulation and stuff a little bit with these? And
obviously that question's come up a lot, right? Are they going to have the poppable head? So when we first got into designing them, I mean, you got to understand, I showed the tennis ball. This thing is massive. And on the original toy, that engineering was really bad. Like you said, they'll just randomly fire off. There's this really badly designed little T-clip that everybody loses on them and you can't find them, or they break. So if we were to do a head pop, we would have had to completely re-engineer the way it was done. And these have a torso pivot joint, which we would have had to completely lose. And then we would have had to do the head out of more like rubbery material, like how the vintage ones were. And those, they just don't hold up that well, and they don't hold paint or detail that well. So it was like, we're doing the heads in PVC so that they can hold really high level sculptural detail and paint detail. And if we were to make that so it could fire, it would be like the most dangerous toy you can possibly imagine. Have just this gnarly spring, and it would be like getting hit in the face with a baseball because you get a big giant chunk of PVC. So it was like, what would you give up to have the head pop versus what can you gain by not doing it? So it made sense to eliminate that. But one of the great features was being able to switch the heads. So I thought to myself, well, we want to keep that, but what can I also do to push that further? If I like switching the heads, why wouldn't I like switching everything else? And if we don't have to re-engineer this mechanism, we can make it modular. So that's what we did. And you can separate them at every single articulation point. So if you want to do half a torso from one guy and half a torso from another guy with half a leg and a foot from whoever, you can mix and match it as many ways as you want. And I can show you how the articulation works, because this has a crazy amount of articulation for the size it is and the sculpt it is. So the head is on a ball joint, so it's a barbell. So it just pops on and off like that, but it'll have two-way motion with the barbell. So you have a reasonable amount of motion there and tons of side to side. Then it's got ball jointed shoulders. It's got disc joint elbow, so it both swivels and rocks. Hands have a disc joint, so it both swivels and rocks. Torso has a barbell, so you get a full range of motion in the torso. Hips are ball jointed. The knees have a hinge joint, so they both turn and rock. And then the ankles have, that actually works on the prototype. It's a little stuck, but it actually has like ankle rocker motion, as well as forward and back. So you get full range of motion there too. So it's got, I think I counted 27 points of articulation. So for a big, huge, chunky figure like this, it's got a crazy amount of posability. And then on top of that, each one's got 4 sets of hands. So you'll be able to have fists or open hands, or vintage figures all had a left hand that was kind of pointing. So we did the pointing hands because it needed to have that nod to the original. So you've got all those interchangeable hands, and then they've all got accessories, which the old ones didn't have. And that was just something when I was designing them, I was like, well, why don't they have accessories? They ought to. We can plus them up. And James, of course, is genius in his designing of accessories. But so Hornhead's got this crazy mace that has a Madball face on it. He's got a turkey leg with a bite out of it, and it's of course infested by
oh, we can't see him. Bring him over a little bit.
See, there we go. Sorry, I'm bad at this. There you go. He's got his worms and spiders, and then he's got this big caveman club with the spikes and nails and bloody skull. And then Oculus, which this is why James Groman is such a genius. The only thing I could think of for Oculus would have been like a giant Visine bottle. And, he came up with like an eyeball would do. It's got these crazy binoculars, and the paint on these, man, I can't bring out probably through this camera just how exquisite the paint, even just on these accessories, is. It's unreal. And he's got his cracked eyeglass with the bugs, and then the eyeball on the end of his slimy telescope.
Holy cow, those are so cool.
Oh, so cool. I've just been so excited playing with these all day. And then Splitting Headache, his crowbar, which of course has an eyeball and a brain on it, because why not? And then a good old-fashioned bone with nails and screws and bugs. And then maybe my favorite accessory, this crazy beat-up skateboard with Band-Aid and tape and all of it on it. And I loved this because I really didn't give James any direction on accessories, because as like a creative director, I sort of feel like you let artists create and then go back if there's anything specific that needs to be tweaked or whatever. But sometimes if you give too much direction, it's like, why am I telling James Groman what to do? You know what I mean? Like, he obviously is going to come up with what I'm going to come up with. So I just let James do what he wanted to do. And I was super stoked on that skateboard because Splitting Headache, his design really looked to me like one of those 80s skateboard mascots. Like, I had stickers that looked just like that I slapped on my Nash board when I was 8 years old, you know? So it was funny because that's sort of how I envisioned that character. And then James threw a skateboard in there. So I was super stoked on it.
That's awesome, man. These are looking really, really impressive. Like the size and the articulation and the details and the accessories, they just look like they're going to be super fun toys. And you mentioned August 1st as the pre-order date, correct?
Right. Yeah. So they'll be on sale on megalopolis.toys and the Megalopolis app on August 1st. And then we're also launching a new premium DNA.toys. And you'll be able to order them through there as well. And part of the reasoning for launching that site, we've just kind of looked at in trying to figure out what the best way to offer collectibles for sale was. We're looking at what are the pros and cons about the way things are done right now. And you have issues with bots scooping everything up. So we didn't want to do like a finite number production run and then they sell out and that happens and people can't get them. So we decided, like, well, if we launch this website, we can kind of do the best of both worlds. There's some things we can do logistically that'll over time close the gap between when you make your purchase and when they ship. So on this first wave, it's going to be a little longer, like they'll ship spring next year, but Wave 2 is already pretty far into development. So by the time I show Wave 2 at what would be Toy Fair, if we have a Toy Fair, they're already going to be in package samples by then. And so it's going to be like a 90-day turnaround from the time of the pre-order to the time it gets in hand. So we're going to be able to tighten up that. Yeah, so the wait won't be too painful, but we can still do it made to order so everybody will have access to them and be able to get them. And the site is created so that we can have updates. So it'll have banners for each of the different properties, and it'll tell you what month those are going to be available for pre-order. And then after you've pre-ordered, you can visit that link for updates. So if you buy Madballs from me, you're not going to be sitting in the dark wondering what's happening with Madballs. You'll be able to visit that site, and we'll also be able to send you out updates through the site through our newsletter. And so when I get new factory samples back, there'll be images and a description of where we're at in the process and how things are unfolding. When we get package samples back, when we get fine tooling samples back, every step of the way, when there's a new benchmark we hit, we can sort of say, this is where we're at in the process. And if there's a setback along the way because something needs fixed, you'll be updated about it. And I just think that'll help a lot. I kind of had this idea in my head. I remember years and years ago when I worked at Toys R Us, and when they were remodeling all the stores, we all went through this big training, and they were teaching us about how Disney does stuff. I don't know if you had any of this when you worked at Toys R Us, Dan, but
no, I don't think I had anything like that.
Oh yeah, well they did it after the remodels for it. It was like a whole huge thing. But one of the things they talk about at Disneyland is when you're in line, there's always stuff to look at and experience while you're in line. And they call that resetting the clock because it helps make it feel like you're not in line so long. And so it resets your clock. And so I always try to carry that over into anything in toys where there's pre-orders and stuff and there's waits. Like, man, if there's stuff we can do that help break up that monotony, because I'm a collector too, and I hate waiting for my pre-orders. None of us like waiting for stuff. It's terrible. That's not the fun part. So I'm just like, well, maybe if we can have a site where all that information is in one spot and we update it as we're updated, people can kind of know what's going on and count down to when the stuff lands and ships and when the next wave is going to be available and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Awesome. And what's the price point on these guys?
They're $35.
That's awesome. 35 seems like a super reasonable price for what we're getting here.
Yeah, I really wanted to pack a lot of value in for that and did a lot of work figuring out how to engineer all the tooling plates and stuff to make that feasible. And I'm really happy that we were able to hit that price point, especially for Madballs collectors, because the Madball market, and I am a Madball collector, right? I mean, I love Madballs and I buy all that stuff. But it's been primarily more art toy driven in recent years, which is always low run vinyl toys. So it's higher price point. So the closest thing to these figures that have come out would be like the Sofubi banks they did a few years ago in Japan. And those are like $80 and they don't have accessories or articulation. So I was like, man, if we can deliver all of this added value at a price point that's actually affordable for people, it'll, it just makes it easier for collectors to get more stuff, and it breathes more life into the line, which is more stuff we can make, and I want to keep cranking them out.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. Madballs is looking incredible, and I mean, the accessories and the detail, like I said, I'm pretty stoked for what you guys are doing with those. I think these are going to be a lot of fun. But let's go ahead and move on to Barnyard Commandos now, because I think we've got at least one reveal that we can talk about here, right?
Well, a work in progress teaser anyway. Can take a look at pull over and see a little bit of the direction he's heading in sculpturally and kind of what that line's going to be all about.
That's awesome. So are these going to be roughly the same scale and everything that you guys are doing with Madballs, or are these going to be closer in scale to the originals?
These are going to be similar to the Madballs. They're not as bulbous as the Madballs, just as a result of their design aesthetic, but they're 6-inch and they're big. They're serious, man. So tons of articulation, more in those than there are in the Madballs. And Barnyard's being sculpted by Brody Perkins. And if you don't know Brody's work, you should definitely Google him. He does work for everybody. Tons of stuff for the Horsemen, stuff for Sideshow, everything from action figures to sculpts a ton of the statues for like Pop Culture Shock and stuff. Just incredibly talented sculptor and a great guy as well. And James Groman has drawn the artwork for those. So they are very much accurate to James Groman's vision for what Barnyard Commandos should be. As you know, I love the vintage line, but they're a hollow vinyl toy with one weapon that clicks onto them, right? So it's wanted to go a direction, so we packed a ton of articulation into them. The sculpts Brody's done are amazing because people can see in the image when you show it, it's like practically invisible. And that's an early render. You can see it more later, but it hides the articulation really well. So they're still very smooth and good looking silhouettes, despite having a lot of articulation in them. And on that render, we don't have any Woolies accessories shown, but all the figures are going to have more accessories than the old line as well. So Wooly, the original, he had sort of like this backpack Gatling gun thing that clipped on and came around, and he's got that, but we've added articulation into that so you can raise and lower the gun. And then he's also got a second set of accessories because he was originally, James had called him Lambo, and he was a spoof on Rambo, which has got that headband and everything. So we've done a Barnyard style Rambo accessory set where he's got a compound bow, but it looks like he made it out of parts on the Barnyard, and the arrows have like a rubber chicken and a carrot for the arrowheads, and his queen is like an old milk can on his back. So he'll have the ability to be in his vintage look, or you can do that with him. He's got a bandolier, but it's got eggs in it instead of bullets, that kind of thing. And then some of the other characters packing in stuff like broken watermelons and hay bales and stuff like that, so you can recreate the carnage of the Barnyard there.
Holy cow. That is amazing. That is just so fun. I love this wacky stuff, seriously. And you guys, man, there's some serious love going into these. I think that's fantastic. When do you guys think you'll be showing more of those off, or what's the planned release schedule for those? Do you have that yet?
So they'll be up. They're planned for September. I don't know that they'll be ready quite on the 1st. We've kind of just put the month to give us a little flexibility, just because there's so much that can come up in toys that change things. But they'll be available sometime in September. Sculpturally, we are a little more than halfway done. I think Brody will have the 4 characters for that wave, probably the figures totally finished this week, and then it'll just be doing the accessories. So we're about like 2 weeks out from Paint Masters on Barnyard. I mean, it's getting close. And when we get to that point, we probably won't reveal the full wave ahead of the pre-order, but we'll probably show maybe Wooly as he's progressed since he's been teased, and then maybe one of the pigs, so you can get a vibe for how we're doing the pig sculpts as well.
Awesome. That is so awesome. I'm really excited. It's one of those things that you just don't think you'd ever imagine saying, right? Like Barnyard Commandos is coming back. We're getting new toys, but here we are, and they look so fun, and it's just totally my aesthetic as far as wacky, weird toys go. I'm excited for these.
Right. Well, I knew at least you and me would be excited about it because we talk about it. We have our phone call supposed to be 5 minutes, and we talk about food fighters for an hour and a half. So yeah. I knew you would like it. But the question is always, is there a big enough market to support it, right? It's a gamble. But I believed in it, and my brother, who's the CEO of Megalopolis, believed in it. And I got to say, we've been so overwhelmed by the response this week. Like, we were expecting people to like it, right? We were expecting like there'll be enough of an audience that we can keep this rolling. But it's been a crazy response. It wasn't like a little bit of love. It's been like, hundreds and hundreds of people messaging us and messaging James Groman, and so excited. And not just on the Madball reveals, but so many people that were stoked that we're doing Earthworm Jim, and stoked that we're doing Battletoads, and Clay Fighter, I think, was the one that my brother and I were both most surprised about and happy about, because that was our favorite video game as kids. Like, we would rent it every Friday at the grocery store video department. Like, my mom probably spent $300 to save $50 in not buying it for our Genesis. Probably should have just bought that game, because we played it. It was just our favorite. We loved it. And we were like, we're going to do Toys of Clay Fighter. Even if nobody else cares, we're going to do Toys of Clay Fighter because we want them. And so many people were like, oh my God, I love that game. And do Bad Mr. Frosty. Are you guys going to do Helga? Are you going to do this? And it's like, man, it's just, it's great. It's very validating to know that we were right, and that there was other people out there besides us that wanted this stuff, and that have our same kind of passion, and that we're going to be able to make these toys for. And we're going to, like you said, there's a lot of love that's going into them. That's because we're the fans that wanted these toys, so we're going to make them right. We're not looking to cut corners and just get an IP where we can crank out as many units as possible. We're going after very specific IP that we feel is overlooked, that we love, and that we can put our passion into the design.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so glad you guys are getting a big response from them, and hopefully the sales will match that response. That's really exciting stuff, though. When do you guys think you'll have more information on some of those lines, like Clay Fighters and Battletoads?
I think the way we're going to do it is pretty much each month there's going to be a new pre-order. So it's like August is Madballs, September is Barnyard, October is Battletoads, November is Earthworm Jim, December is Clay Fighter. So that's through the end of the year, and that's probably as much as we're going to talk about until that's accomplished. And what we'll do is probably start teasing it a little bit ahead of the pre-order. With Madballs, we showed 3 of the 4, which is a little more than we probably normally do, but since it's like the first initial launch. But generally, we'll probably somewhere a couple weeks before that pre-order date, we'll show a little bit of stuff, and then on the on-sale date, you'll get a full reveal of everything. And then we'll run the pre-order, for a good solid month, so everybody has a chance to get it in. And then we are also going to wholesale to select specialty retailers. So we'll have our pre-order window of like a month if you want to order it directly from Megalopolis and you're fans of how we do things. But if you have your retailer of choice, I mean, there's so many great people that are doing this now online. We have, we're friends with everybody that's doing online toy sales, and we love their different approaches too. And we love that there's a lot of options because we all do something different. And there's so many great comic book shops and mom and pop toy shops and stuff around the country. So we want to make sure that we get them out to everybody so you can support your retailer of choice, even if that's not us. Of course, we always try to earn everybody's business and want to be, but we also know that we have a very specific viewpoint in the way we do things, and some people love it and some people don't, and that's fine. So we want to make sure everybody gets their needs met on these.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, I think all of this is very exciting. I think the Madballs look incredible from what we've seen so far, and I'm very excited to see the reveals for everything else. Was there anything else that we need to touch on? Anything you think I missed?
But yeah, no, to your question, like what else we can reveal, we can talk about a little bit about the plans for some of these lines if you want to get into that. Most of these are going to be 4 figure. Most of them are going to be 4 figures a wave. That's going to be kind of the way we go with it. Battletoads is a little bit different. So Battletoads, since that one's coming soon and I'm getting a lot of questions about it, I'll talk about Battletoads a little bit. Battletoads, that game, well, there's so many different games, and the way the characters are presented are a little bit different in the different games, but the scale is something that's really important to me. So especially if you look at like Battletoads Arcade and Battle Maniacs and that stuff, the villains, the end bosses, are freaking enormous. They're way bigger than the Toads. So we're actually doing what we call end boss scale. So the figures are 1/12 scale. So your Toads like Zitz and Rash will be 6-inch. Pimple will be bigger than 6-inch because he's bigger than those ones. And then we will have the end boss scale are going to be, like 12-inch to 14-inch figures. So they're the right scale, but still like, they're huge. So like General Slaughter is going to be 14 inches and huge. So he scales with your Toads. So Toads will be a little different. We'll have 6 figures that go on sale. It'll be the 4 core figures, which will be the regular like 6-inch scale line, and then 2 of the end boss scale figures. And so that'll be how Battletoads goes. And we're taking all of the games. We've got the rights to everything, like everything under the sun Battletoads, other than the Double Dragon crossover. We've got it. So we're going to do like really definitive versions of the characters that incorporate things from all of the games. So guys that, when the Toads ram and they get the giant ram horns, we're going to do alternate heads that have that. Or when the football helmet head, we're going to do it. The giant fists, the giant feet with the spiked boots, all of that stuff. We're going to do it as interchangeable parts. Everything's going to be just nail exactly what the aesthetic and feel of the games are. And then we're also going to be incorporating realistic versions of the Toads based on some of the artwork that Rare has released in just the last few months. Even they put out some artwork that had a more realistic take on the Toads. It kind of looks a little bit like how they look in Killer Instinct game. So we're going to do the Toads in that style as well. And then we have a whole 2 other sublines in Toads too that'll get announced probably at Toy Fair. So Battletoads is going to be a deep and huge line.
Wow, that's actually way more than I was expecting. You think of Battletoads and you're like, well, we'll probably get the 3 Toads, and that's cool. You guys are doing way more than that. That's amazing.
Yeah, what fun are the Toads if they can't fight anybody? And those games have awesome characters. They got fat pigmen and rat people and rat skeletons. And man, I gotta tell you, any chance I have to make a toy of a fat pig person, I don't care what property it's from. If you tell me I can make a toy out of a fat person, I'm gonna make it. Like, give me a whole shelf of Gamorrean guard toys. It's stupid. I don't even collect Star Wars anymore, but I've got so many Gamorrean guards. Like, I don't know what it is, but fat pig people, like, I'm into it. Let's do it.
All right. That's awesome. Man,
that's going to be the quote that goes around. That's going to be what everybody posts. Megalopolis says, "Look forward to fat pig people."
See, that's what you did.
Get it trending on Twitter or whatever, whichever one they trend on. I don't know.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm definitely excited for Battletoads. It's like you said, it's one of those properties that is kind of ingrained, especially in like the 90s pop culture aesthetic. And you're thinking about things like Ninja Turtles and kind of all of the Ninja Turtles type knockoffs. Well, Battletoads kind of fits that but in the video game world. And we've never had proper toys of them before. So this is really exciting for fans of that genre, I think.
Be cool if somebody did a 90s-esque version of them that could fit in with some of those toy properties from that time period, I would think.
Are you giving us a hint? Because that sounds awesome.
It might be something on the list.
Holy cow, you guys are going crazy with Battletoads. I love it.
But that's the idea. We want to go as deep on every one of the properties as people want us to go, right? As much as people want to support. People just want core characters, we'll just make core characters. If they want the weirdest tertiary characters imaginable, we'll make them. We want to do it all. I want to make all that stuff. I want to make the Barnyard playset that never got made. I want to make the vehicles. I want to make the Madballs cycle. James Groman and I were talking about it on text message yesterday, how much we'd love to redesign that thing and gross it up. So if people will support it and will buy it, we're going to make it, man. We want to make this stuff. So
awesome, man. This stuff sounds really, really fun and really exciting. And August 1st, man. August 1st is the day that we launch the Madballs, and then we'll have lots of stuff, it sounds like, to look forward to every month after that. So I'm excited.
That's the plan.
Awesome.
We're excited too. As always, we appreciate you and your support of Megalopolis and helping us get the word out to everybody on this stuff.
Of course, man. And I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk about these. It's as soon as I saw, I was excited about these to begin with, but you started putting those pictures up and I was seeing those Madball pictures everywhere and everybody's talking about them. So I knew that this was something that would be good just to kind of get some more detailed information on. So I always appreciate kind of getting that little peek behind the curtain and hearing the plans about what you guys are hoping to accomplish with these. So thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Any excuse I have to talk about toys, I'll take it. So anytime.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it. There you go. And on that note, that's the perfect place to end this thing. Thank you so much again for all the inside information. We're very much looking forward to everything happening with Madballs and Barnyard Commandos and Battletoads and everything else you guys are doing. It's going to be really exciting, it sounds like.
Awesome. So thanks August a lot, Dan. Appreciate it.
Of course.
August 1st.
August 1st is the date, guys. Make sure you stay tuned for the Madball sales and take a look at everything Megalopolis is going to be doing as far as their new premium DNA toy lines go. Thank you guys so much for joining me for another Comic-Con at Home video with Pixel Dan. Stay tuned for more goodness on the way. Until next time. Comic-Con at Home with Pixel Dan is brought to you by Megalopolis City of Collectibles. Be sure to check them out for all of the latest pre-orders of everything that was just announced during At Home Comic-Con. Thanks for watching.